All right, welcome everyone. We're so glad to have you with us here today. Welcome to Bloomerang Academy. If you would, as you're coming in today, go ahead and drop into the chat where you're located and what the weather is like where you are. We'll test out how our chat is working today. So today we are in Indianapolis, and it's about 57 and cloudy here today. So we've had a lot of sun lately, but now we're having some clouds. Looks like it's cloudy and cold in a lot of places. South Carolina's looking pretty nice. Great. Awesome. Oh, aloha. Wonderful. Oh, so great. Thank you so much. We're so glad that all of you are here with us today. So we are going to be talking about data today, but before we start, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, our number, should you need it for audio for any reason, is 1-669-900-6833. And later on, I'll drop that into the chat in case you lose audio or need audio for any other reason today. We do want to talk about a couple of the features that you can utilize. You're already using the chat to tell us about the weather where you are. Thank you for that. The chat is a really great feature if you want to share something with the whole group. So for example, as Diana is sharing with us today, if you have some sort of really wonderful best practice that you use or something that you want to share with everyone else, please feel free to drop that into the chat. It's really helpful, and we love to hear how people are using their Bloomerang database for really great purposes around data. So please do that. If you have a question, though, for the panelists, if you want to ask Diana or myself a question, we'd love for you to put that in the Q&A, because the chat sometimes gets busy and we may not see your question. So that's kind of the difference between the two features there. Also, you may notice at the bottom of your screen, you have a live transcript button. Should you want subtitles for any reason, please click on that. It'll give you those subtitles so that you're able to read along with us today and capture all of the great information that we're going to be sharing. So without any further ado, I am going to introduce the wonderful Diana Otero. She is the manager of product marketing and so much more at Bloomerang. She has served on the board of the Ncoa Hiking Club, which is one of 31 clubs that maintain the Appalachian Trail. And she is very much about helping nonprofits really drive their impact and meet their mission. So I'm going to go ahead, and Diana, I'm so happy you're here with us today. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Margie, and thank you everyone for being here today. I'm so excited to talk to you today about how to clean up your data to improve your fundraising. We all know that clean data is crucial to keep your nonprofit funded, and inaccurate and incomplete data could result in reduced revenue and poor donor relationships over time. So today we're going to cover the importance of clean data. We're going to take a look at a sample data policies and procedures template. We're going to take a look at how to identify and reduce bad data and how you can run some reports to declutter your database. All right, so for our agenda today, we're going to take a look at specifically, we're going to talk about the importance of clean data, the data policies and procedure template. For identifying and reducing bad data, we'll walk you through the built-in tools in Bloomerang that you can use to help identify and reduce bad data in your database. That includes our duplicate constituents feature, our national change of address processing, or our Ncoa processing. That also comes with deceased suppression. We'll take a look at our payment failures dashboard, your bad emails, and then we'll take a look at how you can declutter your database. This is where we'll take a look at reports that you can run to see how else you can declutter your database and what questions or considerations you can take into account when considering deactivating or perhaps even deleting a constituent. We'll also take a look at some additional services that you can avail of. These are optional services that you can do to help you clean your data. And for the resources, we'll show you some downloadable templates and help articles that can help you. Don't worry, all of the resources that we'll be sharing with you today will link in the presentation So after today, when you receive your email with a link to the recording, you'll also get the slides, and everything is linked in the slides. So don't worry if we may be going a little fast or you want to copy certain links. All of that is going to be linked in the slides. So first of all, clean data. Why is clean data important? Clean data helps you develop and strengthen your customer segmentation. If you don't have clean data, you won't have accurate segmentation of your donors. And it also ensures that you have a single customer view, so that no matter who is looking at the donors or your constituents who is looking at your data, everything is or stays consistent. It also helps you avoid compliance issues. This is especially true, for example, you can track communication preferences in Bloomerang, or if you are in the EU and you want to take into account GDPR considerations, you want to make sure to stay in compliance with those regulations. Also, the Can Spam Act. So you don't want to be emailing constituents who have already told you that they're opting out or unsubscribing for your emails. Keeping track of all of this helps you stay in compliance. It also helps you target your constituents and prospects in a more effective way. The more information you know about your donors and the more accurate that information is, you're able to communicate with them more effectively. It also helps you reduce any wasted budget spend. Things like Ncoa processing really help you not send mailing out to constituents or donors who may have already moved. So you're saving money on your printing, your postage, you're saving time and effort, sending those mailings out, knowing that they might not have a return if they're not actually reaching your donors. Now, all of this, of course, also increases your overall ROI. If you're being more efficient with those systems and processes, if you're actually reaching your donors and getting those responses back, you're actually increasing your overall ROI. We actually have a data policies and procedure template that you can download. It's on our website, but it's also linked in our slides. This ensures that clear, concise data entry policies and procedures are critical to keeping your database usable. This applies to all information in your database, whether that be constituent or profile data, transactions, interactions, or touch points, any additional custom fields. You want to make sure that you want to ensure that your data is complete and accurate and that it is entered consistently. A lot of us are 1 or 2 person shops, but as your organization grows, you may get more people to help. Maybe you have volunteers or your staff grows. You want to make sure that data is entered consistently, and you want to document these procedures. And while we're here and talking about this, I want to ask, does your organization currently have documented data policies and procedures? And I make the distinction here of, is it documented? Because perhaps you do have some policies and procedures that you follow, but it's not properly documented. A lot of times, again, we're 1 or 2 person shops, and these policies and procedures are in our head, and it takes time to get them written down, right? But it's even more important to get them written down because there could be staff turnover. You could have an increase in staff. You could have an increase in people to help you do this. And the earlier you get this down on paper, the easier it's going to be farther down the road. So just let us know. Perhaps you have a well-documented process already. Perhaps you have one, but it is not well documented. Perhaps you're in the process of documenting it right now, or you don't have one yet. Either way, no matter what stage you're in, we hope that today's class is going to be useful for you and give you some tips as you're building your data policies and procedures. Also give you additional tips that you maybe didn't think of when you built your existing one already. So it looks like 31% of the folks we have today don't currently have a process yet. 29% are in the process of documenting it. 26% have one, but it is not well documented. And so far, only 16% have a well-documented process. Again, no matter where you fall in this, it's perfectly okay. This is a great start. Whether you're just starting with your process, we hope this helps you establish that. Or if you already have a documented process, maybe we'll give you some tips on how you can improve that as well. So thank you for your answers. Wonderful. We also have a comment in the chat. I'm the only one entering info, but I still have to make notes on how I'm entering certain things. Perfect, exactly. You're the only one entering info right now, but that could change in the future. So it's good to start making those notes now. Also, data policies and procedure helps you avoid duplicates. We know that duplicates can be a pain in your system, so we want to avoid that at the point of entry. You want to standardize contact data at the point of entry. So in simple terms, you can't maintain healthy data or healthy data hygiene while also letting unhealthy data into your CRM. Before cleaning data even needs to happen, you need to check important data at the point of entry. This ensures that all information is standardized when it is entered into your database, and it will make it easier to keep it clean and reduce cleanup efforts down the road. This is also going to help with acknowledgements and communications as well as reporting. If you take, we've already done this poll, so again, thank you for your answers. So when you're putting together your data policies and procedures, you can also think about, are there codes or attributes that are way more expansive than they need to be? Are there fields that are not required that they should be? Or perhaps the opposite, are there fields that are required that shouldn't be? You know, maybe people are plugging in junk into these fields as a result of having to put something there. So think about those things. I know that I'm a data nerd myself, so the more information I have, the happier I am. But think of how this data actually helps you with your fundraising. As much as I would like to know, for example, everyone's favorite color or everyone's favorite animal, how does this really help with my fundraising? Also think about, does your campaign fund and appeal structure work for your organization? With all of the information that you're putting into the database and you're reporting on, think about how this data will affect your donor acknowledgements, your communications, and your reports. You can't run a donor report by constituent type if the information is not constituent. You can't filter a report by a city or a town if you've entered the full name in one and the abbreviated version in another. So think about, how does this information help you run those reports? How does this help you segment your donors? And how does this help you communicate and engage with your donors? And again, these are some sample questions to ask as you build your policies and procedures. We also have this downloadable template that you can use to start with, and you can use this as a starting point. And I use the keyword there as a starting point to initiate the discussion within your team and document the results of that discussion. Your organization might have unique needs that you want to build into that template. So use this as a starting point and build from there. Here is a sample of what is included in our data policies and procedure templates. So it takes a look at everything from profile management to transaction management, interaction management, report, Bloomerang specifically, or if you're using other systems, put that in there as well. There's also some recommendations of data quality and maintenance reports, transaction processing, transaction reconciliation, and all of that good stuff. And again, use this as a starting point. So include in there stuff that's specific to your organization as well. All right, now how do we identify and reduce bad data? we're going to go into Bloomerang and talk about these free built-in features in your database that help identify and reduce bad data in your database. I'm going to start off with some slides first to show you a high-level overview of what it does, and then we'll jump into the database to show you how it actually works. You'll also have these slides, so this is a good prompt for you, and you don't have to bother writing these down. These will all be in the slides. So in terms of identifying and reducing bad data, we have several tools that you can use. And again, these are free and these are built in. We have our duplicate constituents, the national change of address, disease suppression, bad emails, and payment failures. I also wanted to call out, this doesn't just apply to your constituent data. Check your user list as well when you're cleaning up your database. As long as a user is active in your database, they have access to your database. So if you have volunteers who are no longer volunteering, or perhaps only volunteered for a limited time, you have interns that have come and gone, you have staff that have come and gone, make sure to check your user list to see if these folks still need access to your database. So first, we're going to take a look at the duplicate constituents. A wonderful thing about this is you'll get an in-app notification when potential duplicates are found. So as soon as a duplicate is found, you're able to take action on it. And again, with most things, it's easier to address it right away so it doesn't pile up. Or if you're already in a situation where it has piled up, do a little bit at a time and chunk them up so it's not such a big, daunting task. What can happen here is it will show you pairs of duplicates that you can choose to merge, or you can choose to not merge. Let's take a look at that in my sample database. So you have this notification up here, and it's showing me that I have 21 possible duplicates. How does the duplicate checker work? When you look at the list, it actually shows you what the matching criteria is. So for this constituent, for example, they're being shown to me as a possible duplicate because their email, their address, as well as their phone number match each other. One thing to note here is the system doesn't match by name alone. For example, you could potentially have constituents in the database that have a common name like John Smith. If it's only the name that matches, it won't necessarily be seen as a duplicate because it's possible that you have constituents with the same name. However, things like email, that tends to be unique to a person. Address tends to be unique unless they're in the same household. Phone numbers tend to be unique, so those will come up as a match even though the name doesn't match. So you see here, for example, Kristen is being matched because it's the same email address and phone number. I happen to know this constituent, so I know that one of the accounts is with their maiden name and one of the accounts is with their married name. And if I know that information already, I can go into their account and I can choose which account to keep, if I want the one with their maiden name or I want the one with their married name. It's not a bad idea to actually talk to your donor and ask them what their preference is. So let's say we've talked to the donor and we know they want to go with their married name, for example. I can choose to keep that account. And if I choose to keep that account, you'll see a couple of things happen here. You see, for example, interactions on this account is crossed out because everything is merged into the account that I'm choosing to keep. So this has gone up from 1 to 3 because this is being brought into here. So you don't lose any information when you merge duplicate accounts. Everything is merged into the same account. Everything from this account is moved over and merged to this account. Even things like addresses, for example, we won't ever lose that address, but whoever's account we keep, that's the one that will be marked as primary. So that applies to all your contact information, email, address, and phone number. All the transactions, interactions on their timeline are going to be moved to that same account. I'm not going to merge this for now, so I can keep using it as an example. But if I wanted to, I would just click merge here. That pair is no longer going to appear in my list of duplicates, and everything that's in this account previously will now be in this account. Conversely, we also have, if we take a look here, it's saying Katniss Everdeen, or it's matching Katniss Everdeen with Bloomerang. Why is that? And it's telling me that it's matching by name and address. Now, in this case, it looks like Katniss Everdeen is an employee who works for Bloomerang, and that's where the name is found. So in this case, we know that it's not a duplicate, so we can just click not a duplicate. It's going to take them off our list. And because we've already identified for the system that they're not a duplicate, they're not going to keep popping up on the list. Now we do have a question here. Margaret asks, what could be the possible reason for having duplicates that are not flagged in this way? I sometimes see duplicates that are even identical in all fields, but are not flagged as a duplicate, usually after an import. That's a great question, Margaret. So I'm going to go back a little bit, and I want to mention that if you are doing imports within Bloomerang, the matching criteria when you do an import is it takes a look at the name plus either email, address, or phone. If the name plus either email, address, or phone in the database or in your import file matches what's in the database, the system is going to catch them as duplicates and update the existing account instead of making a new one. We might need to dig deeply, or dig a little deeper as to why they're not matching in your case. Our support team can help with that. But if it has the same first name, last name, plus either email address or phone, it should be picked up as a match. You might have instances, for example, maybe you have a work email on one and a personal email on the other that might not see it as a match. I do know that the matching also takes a look at nicknames and imports. So if you have, let's say, an Anthony Smith and a Tony Smith, the import can pick that up can pick up Tony as a common nickname for Anthony and recognize that as a match. If you do, however, recognize that there are, or see that there are duplicates in your system, but it's not being picked up by the duplicate checker, what you can do is go to that constituents account. Let's say we'll go to Sherlock Holmes. And you can see here, I have 2 accounts for Sherlock Holmes. You can actually merge these manually if you know that there are duplicates and they're not showing up. So what you can do is go to their profile, click the drop-down arrow here and click merge. So you don't have to wait for the duplicate checker to see it. If you notice right away that there's a duplicate, you can address it right away. So you can click the account, and kind of the same process here. You can choose which one to merge and which one to keep, and it will combine all the timeline entries into that one account. Great question. So I'm going to cancel out for this for the moment. As I mentioned, I like to keep those examples in my database to show you all. But that's how our duplicate checker works. And again, as soon as it finds a duplicate, as soon as you save a constituent and a duplicate is found, you're going to get that alert. So go ahead and check that out right away. And if you do find a duplicate that isn't listed, you can merge them manually. Another great tip here that we recommend is, a simple thing to add to your process is before entering a new constituent, try searching, and they may already be there. For example, if I'm not sure maybe if Mycroft Homes is already in there or not, I can just do a quick search on their name. And instead of creating a new one and having to go through the merging process, I can just go directly to their account. Great questions. Another thing that I want to show you, of course, is our National Change of Address, or NCOA processing. If you've ever filed a change of address with the U.S. Postal Service, this is what it's referring to, and this is the information that we're checking against. The first thing that you need to do here is, if you're an administrator in your database and you have a standard license, This is free, but you do need to turn it on. It is free, but it's not automatically turned on. You have to go to your settings, my organization, and then scroll down. You're going to see an NCOA section in there. If you're not seeing that, you may not have this in your database, but we can have you talk to our customer accounts team so you can upgrade and get this for free. If you haven't turned this on yet, this button is going to say Activate NCOA Processing. I've already turned it on in my database, so for me, it's showing as View NCOA Dashboard. We have a great question here. Are there any downsides to opting into the NCOA processing that we should consider before turning it on? Not really. We have had instances where, so the beauty of this is updates can happen to your database as often as nightly, and this happens automatically. So if you have a constituent in your database, the system checks it against U.S. Postal Service records. If a change of address is found, that new address is automatically brought into your database. Fantastic. You don't need to pay separately for an NCOA service. You don't need to manually update the information. It happens automatically. Now, we do have some customers, or we do have some nonprofits that don't like that it happens automatically. They want to review the information first before it adds information to their database. There is a way to pause the integration, or there is also a way to pause it for certain constituents. So if you have, we've seen this more often, for example, if you have some major donors and you want to see those updates before it happens, pause it for those specific donors and have it happen automatically for others. So I hope that helps answer your question. So if those are considerations for you, there are ways to mitigate that. So how does this work, right? Let's take a look at some constituents in my database. So for example, I have this constituent here. So far, it looks like your usual profile, but if we take a look at their address, there now appears an NCOA note. The only time that your database is going to get this NCOA note is if there was an update because of the NCOA update. And this will tell you the NCOA update. This is the date that the update to your database was made. It also tells you when the move date was found and the reason. There's 3 possible reasons for an NCOA update that you'll see in your database. First is this one, where the constituent has moved and we've found a new address. The second that you'll see is if it's been standardized. So these are things like road spelled out versus road RD, avenue versus av, street ST versus street spelled out, or should the apartment number be on a second line or the same line? Should it be the first line or the second line? That gets updated according to USPS standards. The third reason that you might see there is if for some reason, according to the USPS, this address is considered non-mailable. And this could be for a variety of different reasons, but again, this comes directly from the US Postal Services. And if they've marked it as non-mailable, then it's going to get marked as non-mailable. We'll take a look at that too. But for this one, the reason is moved, and it will also show you the old address. It will never delete any information in your database. But what it's going to do is it will add the new address that's been found onto the profile, and it will make that new address primary. So I'm going to cancel out of this. You can see the old address is still in there. We're not going to delete any information. And in fact, if you go into that old address, it even shows you the new address. So to avoid any confusion, that's always there. It's marked which is old and which is new. And the new one is automatically marked as primary. And again, all of this happens automatically. So the new address is added automatically. The new address is marked as primary automatically. It never removes the old address. It just keeps in there for your records. Now, if you want to keep the old address, it's there, great. If you don't, you can delete it yourself, but the system is not going to make that determination for you. Whenever you delete information in your database, we want that to be your decision. So if you want to keep the old address for reference, then you can keep it. If you don't want it, you can just go in there and delete that old address if you don't need it. We had a question here earlier as well. Does this work with Canadian addresses? It works for Canadian organizations if the constituent has a US address, not Canadian addresses. We do have a separate service for Canadian Ncoa, but that's not built in. Great question. We have a question here. How is the address change triggered? That could be anything, right? You could have changed data on your constituent profile, and then that gets checked against USPS. That gets checked against the USPS records. If a change is if a matching change is found, it gets updated. If not, nothing happens. Or perhaps this is the same address you've always had in your database, and then suddenly the constituent files a change of address with the US Post Office, then it gets updated. We do get data from the USPS every Sunday. So any data in your database is compared to last Sunday's data from USPS, but it can still happen nightly depending on how often you're entering new data or updating data in your database. Great questions. Let's take a look at a sample of what's been standardized, or of an address that's been standardized. And you can see here, it can be simple updates as previously we were spelling out road, but it standardized that to RD. It could also add the additional 4 digits to the zip code. So those are what we mean by standardized. Again, very minimal change, but you'll always get this Ncoa note on the constituent's address. Now let's take a look at a sample here of what's non-mailable. Of course, it's going to be non-mailable because Ron Swanson is a fictional character with a fictional address in my database. So you can see here that it's been marked as bad. And this is because the reason, according to the US Post Office, is this is a non-mailable address. An extra thing happens when an address is marked as non-mailable. It's going to automatically be marked as a bad address. Now, you can run reports on this to see what's been updated, so you can see what Ncoa updates are happening within your database. So I have a report here in my system. Now, whenever an Ncoa update happens, you do get an email notification letting you know that records have been updated. What I like to then do is check out or run a report in my database to see what those updates are. So you can see here, I have an Ncoa updates report. And this is a constituent report. The filter I have here is, has any specific address where the note contains Ncoa, because the only time you're going to get that note is if an Ncoa happens. So note contains Ncoa, and I've actually added a column for the note so I can see what that note says. So you can see here, for example, note Ncoa update, reason non-mailable, reason standardized, non-mailable. We'll find a move in there somewhere if we want. Now, this is just for all Ncoa updates. If I wanted to look at it specifically, for example, hey, show me anyone that has moved according to the Ncoa, I can just change that note to say moved instead of just Ncoa. And then when I click OK, it's only showing me the 10 constituents that have been found in my database that have an Ncoa note on it where a move was found. So you can take a look at it as what are all the NCOA updates, or you can take a look at it specifically. What are those that have moved? I can easily change this to note contains standardized or note contains non-mailable to see exactly what I'm looking for. I'm going to change that back to NCOA for now. And if you wanted to as well, maybe if a move was found, let's change that back to move. Maybe if a move was found, if you're feeling up to it, you can create a task maybe to send some kind of welcome to your new home letter or email or postcard to their new home. Or if a move was found, if you wanted to check all the NCOA updates that are happening, you can schedule that to go into your inbox as well. The report gives you a little more detail than the email notification you get for the NCOA updates. So you can take a look at that. I'm seeing a question here from Eve. I've never gotten an email about NCOA updates, but they have been made. Eve, check what email address is under your organization settings. It may be going to that email address instead. So just to be sure, check that, but you can also set up this report and just have it scheduled to go to any number of email addresses so that insight gets put in your inbox as well. And that's our NCOA update. Again, that is free with your standard database, but you need to turn it on. So if you're an administrator in your database, you can turn that on and you can start benefiting from that. Another thing that comes with the NCOA update is also deceased suppression. So again, this is already part of your NCOA updates. Deceased constituents are marked as deceased in Bloomerang. So what you can do, or what happens here, is the NCOA updater takes a look at if there is a first name, last name, plus address match found in the database. It is automatically going to mark that constituent as deceased. And it's looking specifically at first name, last name plus address, not just the last name, because it could be someone in that household. So we want that first name match as well. So, and there are additional settings that you can go into in your NCOA dashboard. For example, if you go in there, you're likely to find maybe a link to the obituary that you can take a look at further before you take action and communicate with the family. The next thing that we'll take a look at is bad emails. Now, of course, NCOA helps with bad addresses, moves, non-mailable addresses, but you could also be getting bad email addresses in your database. Now, Bloomerang automatically scans the primary email address, and that's a good distinction here. It's only the primary email address for every constituent to validate their deliverability and to protect your sending reputation. This isn't something that you can manually mark. The only time this can happen is automatically based on the system. So we'll go back to Sherlock Holmes, and you can see here I've put a pretend email address on Sherlock's account, which is just Sherlock at bademail.com. Now, if you go into this email address, you can see that Bloomerang has marked this email address as bad because of an email deliverability issue, and it shows you the reason. So you're always going to have this bad email reason, and you can report on this as well. And it says here for this particular one, the address was determined as invalid. Again, because I made that up just for demo purposes. But as soon as you enter an email address in here, as soon as you save that email address, it can automatically be marked as bad. Now, sometimes we have, it can be a little aggressive in marking email addresses as bad. And if you find that, oh, hey, I know Sherlock, this is the right email for him, what you can do is contact our support team and they can mark this email as valid for you so you can start sending to that email address again. Most of the times what we've seen is maybe these are old email addresses that may have been deprecated. We know some of our nonprofits have reached out to donors just to see, hi, we've updated our system. Is this still your email address? And if they get a reply from that email address, you can also forward that to our support team to say, hey, we know this is the right email. You can see here they've emailed us from this address, and they can take care of that for you. So that's another thing that can help you. And again, that's important because it's not costing you money to send out emails necessarily, but it is affecting your email sending reputation. And if you have a lower reputation, or let's reverse that. If you have a higher reputation, there's a higher success rate of your emails getting delivered to your constituents. So you want to keep that email reputation or email sending reputation high. Now, before I show you this next one, which is our auto processing or payment failures dashboard, I want to ask everyone as well, do you have pledges or recurring gift payments set up for auto processing? And by that, I mean, do you typically, is their card charged automatically every month for a monthly donation? Or do you mostly rely on checks or cash? Or so auto processing, do you have any pledge or recurring gift payments that are being processed automatically by credit card or by EFT? Let's say every month, every week, every quarter, depending on what their schedule is. Great note from Marty as well. Yes, but not through Bloomerang. That's a great point. So it's possible that you may also have this outside of Bloomerang. That's okay. Let us know. So far, it looks like 69% of you have said yes, 26% have said no, and 6% say, I'm not sure. Thank you for those responses. And yes, I'm seeing a question in chat. Does Bloomerang have that capability? Absolutely, Bloomerang has that capability. Before I look at the payment failures dashboard then, let me show you, let's just add it to Sherlock since we're already here. So if I wanted to add a new recurring donation to Sherlock's account, I would click new recurring donation. We're not going to fill in all the details, but you can see here it says auto payment method. If you select none, that means that you're telling the system, don't worry about auto processing. I'm going to manually enter the payments as they come in. Again, perhaps Sherlock is paying by check, but if you are connected to a payment processor, for example, Bloomerang Payments or EFT, again, also available with Bloomerang Payments there, you can enter their card information or their account number and their routing number and have it process automatically. Now, I will fill in that information because I want to show you, I saw the question there of, what kind of frequencies can you set? So I'm just putting in a test number in there. I should have checked if that's still the test number, but bear with me. So you can enter all those details and it's going to ask you for a start date. When should the card start to be charged? So when is it going to start? And it's going to ask you for a frequency. So for frequencies, you have the option to select weekly, every other week, twice per month, maybe monthly, every other month, quarterly, or yearly, depending on what the donor wants. So if you select weekly, for example, it's going to start processing, in this case, on the 6th. Today is a Thursday, so it's going to process every Thursday. If you select every other week, it's going to process, again, Thursdays every other week. If you have the option for twice per month, you can have the option to put in what exactly the days you want to be processed. So perhaps, for example, Sherlock wants it to be processed on the 1st and the 15th of every month. You can change that up. And end date, If they've already said they have an end date, you can put that in, but typically recurring donations go on indefinitely until the donor tells you to stop. So when the donor tells you to stop, you can just put an end date in there, and then it starts, and then it will stop processing those donations. And this is a great point here. Bloomerang's forms also have options for recurring donations. So a donor can donate online, make that be recurring as well. And that will automatically process using the credit card that they put when they made the online donation. Great question. Quick question here. Marla asks, would we have to manually add recurring if we switch from one platform to Bloomerang? That's a fantastic question, Marla. That depends on what your current processor is. But if that's something that you're interested in, please reach out to our support team and they can do some investigation on what your processor is and what the process is like to switch that over. Wonderful. Okay, now let's say we save this and we set up Sherlock's recurring donation. What happens if, for whatever reason, it didn't process on the day that it should have? You are also going to get this alert saying you have, in my case, 19 credit card payment failures. First, let's talk about why might these failures happen. You know, maybe this is a long-standing recurring donation and their card has expired. Maybe there was just a glitch in the system. Maybe the internet was acting up. Maybe it's an invalid routing number. Whatever the reason is, you're actually going to see that here. You're going to see a processor response, and that can help inform you what your next step should be. For example, if your card's expiration year is invalid, you're going to need to talk to the donor and get an updated card, right? Or your expiration month is invalid. You have an invalid routing number. So this comes directly from the processor. So it can be as detailed as your card's expiration year is invalid, or it can be as vague as card was declined. Another thing you can take a look at to determine your next course of action is, you can see here there's different statuses, right? This one is next scheduled payment. This one says no next scheduled payment. This one says retrying automatically. What do these mean? So if you see something that says retrying automatically, what this means is it looks like it should have processed on the 6th, but it did not. Now, if it's within 7 days of the original processing date, Bloomerang is going to retry processing for the next 7 days, every other day for the next 7 days, just to see maybe if we process 2 days from now, maybe it might go through then. So for example, if you see a reason that says card declined and it's still in the retrying phase, you might wait those 7 days out and see if it processes automatically. But again, looking at a combination, well, we know it's expired. No matter how many times we retry, it's still going to be expired. So we want to go ahead and reach out to the donor. But if you see what it says here, that it's retrying automatically, it's still within that 7-day period. If it says next scheduled payment, I mean, if it's a monthly gift, we're still going to try every month, but we are beyond that 7-day trying period. Now, again, pairing that with the response, if it's already expired, we want to go ahead and reach out to the donor. If it says no next scheduled payment, there isn't another schedule, there isn't an opportunity to try again, talk to the donor right away. And what you can do here is you can click resolve. That's going to take you directly to the gift where you can enter the new card information and save it. And that new card will be used moving forward. Now you get this notification as soon as a payment fails. So try to address it as soon as a payment fails, because if you enter in the new card, it's only going to reprocess the most recent missed payment. So for example, if a donor has already missed missed 5 payments, we're not automatically going to recharge the 5 payments. That might be a shock to the donor. In those cases, you want to talk to the donor. From what we've seen, donors are more than happy to continue their recurring donation. It just might be a miscommunication of they lost their card or got a new card, the card expired, but you want to address that right away so it doesn't pile up. It's a better experience for the donor if you address that right away. And even if, for example, the donor told you, I'm really sorry, my circumstances have changed. I can't continue this recurring donation right now. You can end that recurring donation so you don't keep getting reminded that the payments are being missed. And it's an opportunity to connect with the donor. Maybe talk to them about what's happening. Maybe they can be involved with your organization in a different way, not just with their recurring giving. And keep that conversation open. Their situation hopefully will change again, and they can continue supporting your organization when that happens. Another thing I want to point out here is this also tells you your fiscal year revenue at risk and your revenue recaptured. This calculates, all of these little things, even if it's a $10 monthly payment, all of these add up. And if you don't fix that now, let's say I'm just at the start of my fiscal year, that's 10 times 12. That's $120 just for that one donor. Now, how many of those $10 recurring donations do I have? All of that adds up. And if I don't fix it, this is how much you have at risk to lose if you don't fix these recurring donations. And it also keeps track of you if you've been able to recapture them. So keep an eye on this. We alert you right away when something happens, so you want to fix that right away. And that's another way that it can help not only keep your database clean, but it can help you keep your revenue going and can save you time from not having to manually check on these recurring donation or pledge payment failures. This is also specific, I should note, this is specific to credit cards. We don't get the information from EFTs right away to be able to accurately reflect that here. So this is specific to credit cards. And also, if you do have Bloomerang Payments, Bloomerang Payments has an automatic card updater. So if a new card is found, your system can automatically be updated to avoid these payment failures as well. Lovely. And as I mentioned, remember, it's not just your constituent data, it's also your user list. So if you are an administrator in your database, you can go to Settings, Users, check out which of those users still need access to your database. If they no longer need access to your database, you can deactivate them or delete them. You don't have to worry about, as long as they're deactivated, they can't get into your database anymore. So as long as you're using one or the other, deactivating or deleting, they don't have access to your database. So not just your constituent data, but your organization data as well. Now, there's other tools, there's data tools within Bloomerang that you can use to update information in your database in case you do need a little bit more cleanup, right? We have our data tools, which means you can, one of them is the import. So you can update your constituent information via import, but you want to make sure you have enough matching information in your file so that you don't create those duplicates. So you want to have your first name, last name, plus either email address or phone. But if you also have the Bloomerang account number, that functions as an exact match, and that will avoid creating duplicates. Another data tool that we have is we have a mass updater for transactions where you can update the fund, campaign, or appeals of existing transactions in Bloomerang. So again, not just constituent information, but organization information as well. What are your funds, campaigns, appeals? What are you still using? Do you have too many? Do you have too few? If you need to make updates to the transactions that are already in your database, this tool is available for you. And then I also want to talk about how to declutter your database. And again, these are some of the questions that you can ask when you're thinking about decluttering your database. Can you fill in missing data? What are the sources of information where you can fill in this missing data, maybe via an import or manually doing it, but fill in that missing data. You know, when you're looking at your constituents, when was the last time they opened an email? What are we going to do with our email unsubscribes? I don't necessarily have these answers for you, but ask this with folks in your organization. If we have someone in the database who's never given and have never opened an email and has unsubscribed, do we want to keep them in the database or not? Do we have other avenues by which to engage this donor or by which to engage this constituent and turn them into a donor, or are they just taking up space in my database? What's their overall engagement? Do they volunteer? Do they attend events? It's not just giving. Do they do these other things as well? When was the last time they gave? If you have someone in your database that hasn't given in 10 years, do you still want them in the database? Perhaps if you have some re-engagement efforts lined up, the answer is absolutely yes. But what has happened in the last 10 years that they haven't given? Is there information that we're missing? Do we still have the right address for them? Maybe they still want to give and we're just not able to reach them. Take a look at that. And how much appetite do you have for your re-engagement efforts? Again, I know a lot of us are small 1 to 2 person shops that wear multiple hats. How much appetite do you have for these re-engagement efforts? Where does that fall into your priority to re-engage these donors? And again, that's something I'm not going to be able to answer for you, but talk about that within your organization. Perhaps this has just not come up before and it is a priority. We just have to declare that or write that down that this is something that we want to do. And I mentioned earlier, you want to address things at the point that it happens. You don't want it to pile up on you. So you want to do some regular maintenance. I have also linked here an ebook, Data That Changes the World, and it has this data management checklist where it makes some recommendations of what you can do daily or weekly, what you can do every month, every 3 to 6 months, every 12 months. Now, again, use this as a starting point. Maybe you don't have the bandwidth or the appetite to do this weekly, but you can do it every month, or you can do a little every month. You don't have to do it all at once. You can chunk it up into what makes sense for you and your bandwidth and your appetite. Are there certain things here that can be automated? For example, run an Ncoa. If you have a standard license with Bloomerang, just turn that Ncoa on and you don't even have to add it to your checklist. It just happens automatically. What are those things you can automate? How often do you want to do these things? Maybe there's something on this list that instead of every year, you want to do every 6 months. Use this as a starting point for what works for your organization. And plan that accordingly with your bandwidth. Perhaps certain times of the year, you have more volunteers to help with some things, and you can devote more time to some of these things. Add that to your plan as well. We have a lot of resources for you here in terms of keeping your database clean. We won't look at them individually, but I wanted to let you know that these are all linked in the slides, which you all will get. So keep an eye out in your inbox for that email. We do also have some services and resources that can help. I know it can be overwhelming and you might not have all the time to do all the things that you want to do. It's just so you don't have time for it. We can help. Right now, for example, we are offering a database health check for your organization. How this works is that you will get a database audit. So someone from our team will actually audit the data in your database, present to you the findings of the audit, and also present to you a list of recommendations that we think can help you keep your data healthy and clean. And, the recommendations could be, you need to run this enhancement or this append, or perhaps you may just want to opt for additional training on certain things. But you will get that audit to let you know how your data is doing, and you will get recommendations on how you can level up your fundraising by making sure that you have clean data. So I've linked it here. Again, all of this links to the landing page, so you can fill out that information from there as well. But also, I'm going to launch a poll here. If you are interested in any of our service that can help you with these, please let us know and we'll have someone reach out. As I mentioned, there's that database health check that starts with a database audit, and we'll make some recommendations on what you can do with your data. Or perhaps you're just interested in the Ncoa processing. And I want to stress that again, if you have a standard license in your Bloomerang database, that's already free and built in, you just need to turn it on. Or if you're perhaps using our other levels of subscription and you want to upgrade so you can get that Ncoa processing, let us know. Perhaps you already know, you have some, you already have some projects where you want some mass deletes or some mass updates, let us know as well. Or if you want specific appends, again, you know your data best. So we have some tools that can help you, but let us know as well what you need, and we'll get that for you. I'll leave the poll up as we wrap up. Again, we have these free articles, ebooks, templates that are all linked in the slides. And if you need additional help with any of the things, any of the features that we showed you today, please reach out to our support team or click on that question mark icon. We have help in videos. All of that is linked in these slides as well. You can email support. You can start a live chat online. And any questions that we didn't get to today, not to worry, we'll make sure someone follows up with you to make your questions, to get your questions answered. I know we have time, and that was a lot that we talked about today, and a lot to think about, I hope, from your organization and how you can keep your data clean and use that to your advantage and really level up your fundraising with your clean data. So thank you all so much for being with us today. We hope that this has been helpful for you. We do have a poll at the end, or a survey at the end, letting us know if you have additional suggestions for classes that you want to see on Bloomerang Academy. Let us know. And we hope that you have a great rest of your day, and we hope that we see you in another Academy class soon. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.